Oh my goodness. Yes, we were not here last week because we were away.
Yes, we were in Edmonton, or as they like to call it, the locals, Deadmonton. That's not our term, that's theirs. So
It
you
is
can't be mad
not,
at us.
and but we agree.
We agree. So it's a great week. We were there for the ball hockey nationals for our sons,
Hmm.
and they made it through to a silver, which was amazing for a national. So that was great, and we had a really great time with them. Wouldn't say there was a lot to do in Edmonton because there wasn't. We tried. We were online. We asked you guys for suggestions, and we got zero suggestions. And we
But
now know why.
you can eat. That was the one thing that I had a couple of people text me with was restaurants.
Yeah.
So, because there's a lot of them. So people eat in Edmonton. We know that for sure because there's a
They
ton.
work and they eat.
That's it.
And they try to avoid the smoke that's always blowing because of the forest
I
fires.
know that was
So
not good.
overall, it was it was basically an experience of eating. That's really it.
Yeah, eating
So
and watching the games. I
yes,
don't know how. I mean, for people who watch ice hockey, obviously the arena's ice, so it's cold. Ball hockey, very different, is very hot. So we were in the stands, literally like drinking water, and we were like almost sweating just sitting there. I don't know how our boys did it, but they love the sport so much. They were so happy to be there, so happy to play in the nationals.
so it was an interesting week for sure. Learned a lot, and what's interesting is as well, like we have our AI mastermind this afternoon, and we're
Mhm.
talking about customer service and sales and AI integration. And man, we did a lot of customer service issues last week, did we not?
Well, it became a comedy of errors.
Yeah.
It literally, and I cannot express that enough. Like literally every single time we wanted to do something, I would go down and I would come back to the room and I'd be laughing. And Faye's like,
Yeah.
what now? And then she'd go down and she'd come back and she'd be like, guess what? Like
Yeah.
it was just a complete comedy of errors. But the lack of willingness to help come up with a solution, here's the problem, but what now was very much lacking.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of my tidbits and customer service tricks and tips because the truth is, if you had done some of this, we wouldn't have had to go to all this issue. So
Exactly.
we are not Karens. We don't freak out and complain about stuff. We're very calm and collected, and we just ask for things that aren't right and see if they'll do them. Unfortunately, a lot of the times people aren't trained that well
No.
at front desk, at customer service, and so they don't know what to do. So we booked a hotel because it had a pool, and it was the most expensive hotel that was in the bundle for where we were going. But it was okay because we were doing a treat for the kids, and we were like,
Yep.
oh, they'll love it after the ball hockey games. So again, we spent more money, and we got there, and the pool was closed.
And it had
Not
been
only was
closed
the
for a
pool
while.
closed, yeah, it wasn't a day, right?
Yeah.
So one of the customers that go there every month said it's been closed for months.
Hmm.
So never told us, was never disclosed to us that it was closed, and we would have never booked it
Yeah.
had we. So I just asked very nicely, "Can you upgrade us? Can you do something to make up for the fact that?" And the answer was simply no. No, we told your organizer, and that was it. It wasn't. Number one is you have to think about an apology when you're talking to somebody, like a very zen apology, right? Like you just have to be very like sincere about the apology. We didn't get that, right?
Anything.
No. Number two, I think is a big one is read the room, right? Like understand that we were disappointed and upset because we spent money and we did it for the boys, and no one read that room. No one understood that. Wait a minute, we should do something because we're not giving them what they booked,
Hmm.
which was and honestly, their no was just it was just we can't do anything for you. It wasn't a nice, sincere. Let me see what I can do. All
It
right.
was simply nothing. And I think the fascinating part that I got was, well, yes, we went through an organization to book it, but the most important thing was is we were customers staying right in front of them,
Yep.
expressing that, here's why we booked your hotel, blah blah blah, and they weren't able to think outside the box. And to me,
No.
that should have been job one. Like, here's a customer in front of you. What can you do to compensate
Yeah.
for the inconvenience that we had booked it purposely for the pool? And the fact that they didn't have any solutions, they didn't want to
They
try to
didn't
come up with
offer us.
anything.
They didn't
Yeah.
say we'd look into it,
No.
right? And they didn't even like. So one of the big things in customer service is you want to make sure that that customer is heard, right?
Yeah.
So you have to repeat to them, like, I understand your frustration, or I understand you're upset, or what can I do? Let me talk to my manager and see what I can do, right?
Yeah.
Anything that, like, that's all we look for. We don't expect a lot. We just expect somebody to say, let me see what I can do because we care about your experience here,
Yeah.
right? Which even there wasn't even like, Stacy and I love humor. Like, even if they had made a joke or something, we would have liked it, right?
Yeah, it's been
But
closed for months and we can't, we're still trying to figure out how to fix it ourselves. I don't know.
yeah, do
Do
you guys want
something
to
to
come look at it
recognize.
and help us fix it? Like something to kind of
Yeah.
offset it. And there was nothing there, right? There's nothing there. So, it was, I'm a gold elite member there. So they should look at my status and see that, let's see what we can do. And it wasn't a big deal. They could have just simply said, we'll upgrade you to a bigger room or something, like
Yeah.
nothing. And they would not have really solved what we.
It would have done something, right? It would have at least helped with the experience because it's not just about service, it's about experience. And it wasn't just our experience, it was the experience of our
Are
boys
you?
as
Oh.
well.
So we got to our room, and what as you guys all know us, what do we do when we don't get any resolve? We go to LinkedIn and we message the CEO of any company. So I messaged the CEO of the hotel chain, who is somewhere in the middle of America,
Yep.
and just said, look, and I was very nice, and I just said, look, this is what we were expecting. Anything you can do. And I was very nice about it. I didn't say, and normally I tell them, so I gave them a suggestion. We asked for an upgrade and they didn't do it. So because when you're complaining, you always have to say, be very clear, right?
Yeah.
So when you're complaining, you always have to say what the problem is, when it happened, and basically give them an idea of how to solve it.
Right.
Right? Because if the CEO or his assistant reads it and they know what you want, they will solve it. Right?
Exactly.
Because if it
Yeah.
gets to the CEO, they are going to figure out what to do, right?
And it should
So
never have gotten to that point,
never. And
and
that's the number one thing. I've always trained all my teams. If the complaint gets to me, that's a problem.
yeah.
Because if a complaint gets to the top of the company, they will give that customer, they will fix it,
Yeah.
right? They don't care if it's right or wrong. They'll fix it because they don't want to deal with it. And so the fact that they're not trained, I would say, is bad news for the customer service VP or whoever.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
anyway, so what did we do? We escalated, sent this thing, didn't hear anything for a couple of days, right? Then the
But as the experience went on, unfortunately, more
it
things
got worse.
started to go sideways,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the internet went down. We go downstairs. We're like, the internet's down. We're like, oh, is it? It's working for us. I go
Yeah.
downstairs, ask for a statement, and they're like, the printer's broken. Faye goes down to get coffee, and the coffee machine's broken. Like I said, it just became a comedy of errors of like, well, add it to the list, add it to the list, add to the list kind of thing.
And actually, the last day, the air was out and it was
Yeah.
really hot in Edmonton. Very, very hot. And the air went out in all the guest rooms.
Yeah.
So, and we were leaving the next day. So I didn't even bring
Didn't
that
worry about
up.
that
But,
one. Yeah.
that's not cool. Right. So basically, I guess midway through the week, because we were there for an entire week, the assistant got back to me of the president and said, look, we're looking into it. We'll give you a call and we'll figure this out. So I was like, cool, at least somebody's listening, right? And it's always
And that's a great response. Like, let
Yeah.
me see what I can do. You don't need to have the immediate response, but you
No.
need to have we're going to look into it and get back to you and honor that statement.
And what I did very clearly, guys, there's your tip, is I said when we checked in, what our room numbers were, when our checkout date was. I gave them my gold member number. We gave them all the information so they wouldn't go back and forth. They could call their property and say, this is what we're looking at. Can you tell us what's happening? So literally, we were out on at lunch on one of the days, and I got a call from the hotel manager, and the hotel manager wanted to fix it. And they offered a couple things that were really silly. Like, I don't want to go to a festival. I don't want to go to movies. Like, we're here for a tournament. And then he was kind of dumbfounded, didn't know what to say. And I just said, hey, just give us a discount on the rooms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's good. And he's like, oh, okay, no problem. He didn't even think that would make us happy. That's why, on the other side, if you're giving customer service,
Yeah.
right, you should really listen. Again, read your room,
Yeah.
and understand. I didn't want frivolous stuff. We were there we wanted the pool. We didn't get it, so just give us a discount. We'll be happy, right? And we got it. We got a really good discount, and shockingly, he actually, like, I thought when Stacy went down to settle the bill, I thought for sure it wouldn't be on there. We'd have to call somebody and argue and do all that stuff, but it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was there. So they gave us a very good discount, very good, very generous, and my impression of the chain changed, right?
Right.
Because I had a lot of confidence that the CEO cared, because a lot of them don't, but
Yep.
the CEO cared. They wanted to resolve the problem. They gave enough power to their general manager at the hotel to make us happy.
Which is good.
And it was solved. So I'm just going to say, now I can say it, Delta, Marriott, great, good job for you guys. Good job,
Yeah.
because you actually went through and solved the problem. So will I stay at Deltas and Marriotts again? Yes. I was
And I
like,
think that's the big thing, is that I've always said there can be problems. I do
yeah,
not expect things to be perfect. There can be problems. It's
yeah,
how you fix that problem that shows the
yeah,
integrity of your organization or the
yeah,
integrity of the service. Because then it becomes different. When you're just going through and you're giving service, it's when there's a hiccup or a problem, then it becomes an experience,
right.
right? You
And
move
so,
through that process.
and he basically, what I would say is, he over delivered on his thing, and over
Yeah.
delivering is huge, because had he said, oh, we'll give you 10% off or something, we would have been fine, whatever. But it would not have made us happy. It would not have made us stay again. But had
Right.
he gave us a great discount, and we were now like, okay, he over delivered. And so therefore we are really happy with the results. So great. And we will come back. Not,
And then
and
the value is there, right?
yes,
Like the value becomes, because our value of what we were paying for wasn't delivered.
no,
So when you equal that out to, yes, you know what, we're not getting a lot of things that we expected in the hotel, but the price that we ended up paying made sense for what we
yes,
received.
yeah,
So the
exactly.
value ended up being comparable. So we were happy. Therefore, again, and how it got resolved and how quickly it got resolved makes you happy with the
Yeah.
experience and now willing to stay there again.
So I'm
So,
going to give you another one that happened last week, same time. So we do work for a client that has restaurants, and one of their Uber Eats went down, and they were trying to fix it for 3 weeks. And the customer service kept opening tickets and closing tickets, opening tickets and closing tickets. Nothing worked, nothing happened. And then so they called me, and I said, all right. So I went on to LinkedIn. Yay, shout out to
there's the tip of
LinkedIn.
the day.
And I went onto LinkedIn and found the CEO and the Canadian director, and emailed them both and said, look, here are the ticket numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot resolve this. This restaurant is losing sales for 3 weeks now. I need it fixed. That's all there is to it. And so back and forth a couple of times, they responded right away, like good LinkedIn people do. And they got the right people involved, and boom, it was fixed.
And it
So
shouldn't
again,
have to get to that point.
shout out to the management, the Canadian management in particular at Uber Eats, because they listened and fixed it. Now, I would say customer service lacking, right?
Yeah, because it
In
shouldn't have to
they have
go.
not been trained,
Yeah, you shouldn't have to get to the point that you send them a note on LinkedIn,
right?
right? We've both had many experiences like that, and it shouldn't get to that point.
Never.
But it does. And when it does, I will say the response has been very quick and the
Yeah.
resolution has been very
I
fast.
have, there's, so here are, for all of our listeners who are regular listeners, we tell you all our secrets. LinkedIn is the big one.
Yeah.
The other is Twitter, which I actually learned from my son,
Yeah.
who said all the good companies listen to their DMs on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's the other one. So if I can't figure out who to message on LinkedIn, I go to Twitter and find their general customer service, their general Twitter or X, sorry. And
Twitter/X.
yeah, and so I send a note to them too. So those are the two platforms. If you go through traditional channels, you won't get anywhere. I'm just telling you, you won't unless it's a really good customer service. Like who's really good? Rogers cell phone guys. They're really. I know everyone wants to bitch about telecommunications people, but their customer service people are highly trained.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, right? Whereas their competitor, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think
as a new Rogers customer,
yeah, there you go. So it's
it
interesting
was a good
because
experience.
you can't when you guys are complaining or whatever, you can't blame the person you're talking to on the phone is a clerk, a junior person, and that's all they can do. So if that, you just ask them to escalate if you want to go that route. If you're comfortable with LinkedIn and messaging people, but again, LinkedIn is professional. So act accordingly. No crazy rants, right? Because I don't want to hear that. I just want to know. I want as a founder or a CEO or whoever, I want to know what's the problem and what do you want. Then I will fix it. But I
Well, I
don't
was
want
gonna
to listen to somebody screaming.
I think that's the big thing too, is how you express your concern, right?
Mhm.
Because there's a difference between, here's my problem, here's the situation I'm going through, here was my expectation, versus the sort of traditional, what I'll call complaining, which is,
Yeah,
the rant, the rave,
the
the yelling, the
Karens
screaming.
of the
Yeah,
world.
like I can't believe this and blah, 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 blah. But you're not expressing it. So that was sort of the difference, is that we didn't yell, scream, holler, whatever. We
Nope.
simply stated, here was our expectation. This is now not the experience that we expected. What can we do?
Yeah.
And where can we compromise to
Yeah.
fix it?
Because
That's how you
we never
bring,
threatened to leave or to cancel a
yep,
reservation or anything. We didn't
or
demand
go to
anything.
social media and start complaining about your company.
No.
No, you
But we
have a,
would have had you not solved it.
well, that's different. But they were willing, like once you get to the point and you're talking to somebody who's willing to solve it, then again, it's the resolution that you need to
Yeah,
focus on, not the, screaming, yelling, whatever, because
exactly.
that doesn't start a conversation, right? You need to go in there with here's the problem, here's where we need to meet in the middle. Let's talk about it so we can find that resolution,
Yeah,
and calmly and professionally. They will help you more than the ranting and raving. So I
yeah,
think it's also how you approach the problem will
yeah,
also get you the resolution that you want.
yeah. So you just have to be very clear. You must be very clear, and don't be emotional.
Yeah.
It's not like we could have went on about, it's the boys' big trip, and last time we're going to take them, and blah blah blah, and we could have done all that, but we didn't. Right? We
Yeah.
just said, look, this is a situation. We need something resolved, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, like I said, ranting and raving, and we have a lot of these. At the same time, I had another issue come up with personal care worker that was looking after Cord while I was away, and they didn't show. They showed up early. They were incredibly rude. My 88 and 95-year-old parents were there, and she was rude to them. And I don't take that. I just picked up the phone again, very calmly, called my contacts and said, "You need to fix this because that's unacceptable." And it was resolved. So again, you have to be calm. You have to understand what you want,
Yeah.
right? And I very clearly said what my expectation was, and that's it. But it sounds like we complain. It's not. It's just that we don't settle. So here's the problem: most people who are in our situation at the hotel, for example, would just go to their room and not even think about it. They would just well, it's a terrible experience. They won't come back, and there's nothing that can be done because they just drop it.
Right.
You can't do that, because what you need to understand is that head person, that CEO, the VP, whoever, does not
Does
know
not know.
that this is happening. And
Right.
so they can't get their teams to become better unless you actually tell them this is a problem. And honestly, like those customer service, forms and shit, not really. Who's going to read them? Somebody in customer service who doesn't want the CEO to see it anyway.
Right. But that's what I mean. There's a difference between that complaining and expressing your concern and identifying where the problem is
Yeah.
versus going back to your room. You're probably going to, you're going to be upset. You're going to be, whatever. I don't care anymore. I'm not going to stay at this chain. I'm not going to stay at all. You're right. Then the company doesn't know. And if the
No,
company
they're not.
doesn't know where the problems are, the company can't fix it.
No.
Now they know where the problem is. I'm assuming that the person who was talking to us talk to the general manager. I bet that pool is probably getting fixed this week.
Because now I'm sure head office is saying, how could you possibly not have it fixed for 2 months? Or,
In the
and
summer, in
yeah,
the heat of the summer, like it was literally the hottest week,
yeah,
where a lot of people would have liked to have come in and
yeah,
gone into the pool to cool off, kind of thing. So it was an interesting experience, interesting week of customer service experiences.
yeah,
And I just feel like we needed to have this conversation, because I think when you're delivering service to your clients and you're delivering that experience and there is a problem, how do you approach that?
right.
How do you approach fixing the problem, and then learning how to address the problem when you're the customer is different than just,
It's
you
totally
complaining.
different, and that's why. And it's different, but it's also the same. Both sides have to
Yeah.
remain calm. Both sides, like most of the time, like if you guys have listened to us now, so you understand that you have to offer what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But on the other side, that person behind the counter might not be well versed in what to offer. So again, if you offer that solution to them, they can help you. They can at least go get it approved or whatever it is. So you have to be on your side, be very clear about it. But on the other side, if you are a customer service rep or you own a company and you're a solopreneur, you have to understand, you have to do the same thing. You have to listen and not argue with the person. Don't argue. If they're screaming up and down, don't argue, right? You can still say no if it's ridiculous, right? But you have to listen to the Karen and let her scream and yell, and then just say, I understand your frustration, or I understand what you're saying. Here is the situation, and be very calm. So when everyone is calm, the situation usually is fixed.
Yeah. And
It's
be
when it
careful
gets,
who you're talking to.
yeah,
Right? Like, don't take it out for example, we went down, like I said, Faye went down one time to get coffee and their cappuccino machine was broken. Well,
yeah.
we're not going to take it out on that person,
It's not
because
her
it's
fault.
not her fault.
No.
That's the challenge, is that if you go back to your room and you sit and you fester and you're frustrated, and then you get up the next day and you go down and the coffee machine's broken, you may potentially blow up at this poor girl who's like, I'm so sorry, the machine's broken. Like, so many people have probably been yelling at her. That's
Yeah.
not her fault,
No.
right? So make sure you don't kill the messenger in
But
that.
I would say I get it, but what they should have done is put up a sign, right? That said, they shouldn't have had make me wait till somebody can serve me and then tell me. So
Right.
I didn't tell you about this one. On the way, driving my parents back down to the city, and my parents, I've always want to stop at like McDonald's or Burger King. They love their breakfast. Don't know why, but anyway. So third time we've stopped at a Burger King. Okay. First
Okay.
time we stopped, well, what we stopped, and they ordered pancakes, and then they had no syrup.
Okay.
And then my mom said, well, can you give me honey? They didn't have any. So she was like, well, why did you sell me pancakes if you didn't have anything? Right. So that
Yeah.
was stupid. Didn't offer anything, didn't offer a refund, nothing. Like, it was so weird. Second time we stopped, no signage or anything, nobody's there, and they were closed for new equipment or something, and that was only because somebody came to the door. So no signage, nothing. So the other day we stop again. This is the last time. Third strike, you're out. We'll never
Yep.
go there again. So we thought it was weird. It was morning, nobody was inside, which was weird, but there was workers. So we're like, okay. And I'm dealing with older people, so takes us a long time to get out of the car. It's a lot of work. So we get into there, we go to the front, we go to order, nobody's in there, and we order, and she's like, "We don't have any coffee. Our coffee machine's broken." And I just looked at her and I said, "It's morning, it's breakfast. Everyone wants coffee. Could you have not put a sign on the door that just said, 'Sorry, our coffee machine is broken'?" That would have alleviated. We
Yeah.
would not have been mad because nobody would have gotten out of the car,
Right.
right? But they couldn't do that. And that to me, and we'll never go back, right? So to me, that is a very poorly managed franchise. Very poorly. Three times and you screw up and you don't, it's okay. Your machine's broken. I get it. But tell us somewhere where we can see it. Not the
Yeah.
girl's fault. Didn't get mad. I just said, you should have put a sign up. And not her fault again if she was never trained to do that, right?
Right. That's the
Her
biggest
boss
thing.
has to do it. So it's fascinating to me that little tiny things can make a difference to people. And when companies don't understand that customer service is important, they screw up. However, today in our mastermind, we're actually talking about AI generated customer service and all the tools that you can use. And I have to say that, with the advent of AI, let's face it, you fed AI a lot of the answers, they're smarter, and you will get some of these problems resolved quicker than worrying about what that person at the front has to say. So there's lots of different ways to implement customer service and customer experience into all these pieces, right? It would have been great if we were at the hotel and we could have just chatted with someone, who could actually do something rather
Right.
than having to go do emails and stuff. It would have been nice to just like click chat. I wouldn't have minded chatting with a chat bot. I didn't mind as long
Because
as
there's no emotion either. That's the thing, is that they're very factual. So I
yeah,
feel like when I go on to, a chat on a different site on for a company, they're giving me very factual information. So even if I'm angry and I'm
yeah,
like, I want to speak to an
yeah,
agent or whatever, and they're like, well, how can I help
yeah.
you? And I
What
kind
do
of
you
give
want?
it, yeah, what do you want? And I kind of type that out. Then they kind of give me a response. It brings me down too,
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
like my logical side, and you're talking to a robot, you're not talking to a
no.
person, therefore your emotions come right down to match that, which actually helps you solve the problem.
So it'll be interesting because what I always look at is, there's a couple of companies that solve the problem. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see if they have an automated follow up that says, "Are you happy? Are you satisfied?" Blah, blah, blah. Because that, again, part of the AI experience is to follow up and say, "Look, here, we tried to resolve it. What happened? Are you happy or satisfied? Are you going to come again? Can you rate us based on that?" Like, there's so much that they can do now, and that will help to
Absolutely.
alleviate some of the issues. And remember, there's very few people that actually complain. They just go away and never come back, right?
Right.
So, out of all those people in the hotel, we were probably the only ones that were like, "This isn't cool," right?
Right.
Because nobody else knows that they could actually complain or actually, try to do something about it. And they just leave, they walk away quietly and they never come back. And you, as a business owner, never know. You
Yeah.
never know that they had a terrible experience.
Or until somebody writes a terrible Google review and
Yeah.
you get it and you're like, what? Like, I wish we had had an opportunity to solve it while you were there. So
Yes.
I think that's the big lesson too, because a lot of people will do the after fact,
Oh
right?
yeah, because people like to be. They don't want to have a confrontation or you know what I mean, and they complain after, which is fine if you try to resolve it. But most of those complaints aren't taken as seriously as people that are there in front of you. I mean, they knew we were there for the week,
Yeah. And we told them in the
so
beginning, right? We
yeah,
told them in the beginning so that they had time to resolve the problem as opposed to waiting until the end. And then it's like, well, now what can we do? Right? Your
right,
options change when you're
yeah.
out of the situation.
And
So,
if they had offered us the same thing when after we got back, I don't think it would have felt the same.
no.
It would have
Yeah.
just been, they couldn't be bothered while we were there, and so they sent us something. They sent us a free night or something. I don't know what they
Yeah,
would
like a
do,
credit or whatever
but
that they, yeah.
it wouldn't be the same. You have to resolve it when the customer's in the experience,
Yeah,
right? You don't want to do it in 2 weeks from now, because then they've moved on,
exactly.
right? And maybe they've booked another trip and it's not with you.
And we knew immediately, like literally,
Yeah,
the conversation was in the afternoon. By the evening came, and I was down there asking for the printout of the statement. We saw it resolved immediately.
right.
So that made us happy while we were there. So
Yeah,
therefore, if something else had happened, we kind of knew that we're like, okay, you know what, we're good now. Like, thank you for solving the problem. Thank you for coming to the resolution. Thank you for meeting us halfway. We compromised, they compromised, and
right.
ended up being a good situation in the end. So
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
awesome.